Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Welcome to our 91st installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Matos and Masei at the end of the book of Numbers. So we have a double portion this week which finishes up the book of Numbers, and sometimes it's double portions. We mentioned a number of times. The reason is because if you want to finish the Torah once a year, and since you want to finish it once a year, there are going to be some parshas that are going to have to double up. And therefore, in order to finish the Torah in one complete cycle, you have different parshas that will double up, even if there's a leap year, right? Which means that you have an extra month, because there's a 11-day difference between a lunar calendar and the solar calendar, right? We hold by the lunar calendar, so it's 11-day difference, and because there's 11-day difference every so many years, you have to have an extra month, because Passover has to be in the spring and Sukkot has to be in the fall. So if you didn't make that adjustment and they come out at the wrong time, so obviously that's bad. So here we have a double parsha. We're going to finish up the book of Numbers this week, and also, the reason is next week will be Parshas Devarim, be the first parsha in the book of Deuteronomy. And before Tisha B'Av, always before Tisha B'Av, you read the parsha of Deuteronomy. Usually it comes up right before Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, the fast of Av, which will be a few days after. At least this year will be a few days after, Shabbos. So therefore, you read the book of Deuteronomy before. So here, the main part of the Parsha of Matos speaks about vows, all kinds of vows. Also speaks about laws of kosher utensils, the Kohanim and the Levites, what the soldiers take, what the people take, when it comes to war, etc. So I want to focus a little bit at the beginning of the parsha. Beginning of the parsha, which talks about vows. It says, chapter 30, verse 2, Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribe of the children of Israel, saying, "This is the thing that Hashem has commanded. If a man takes a vow to Hashem or swears an oath to establish prohibition upon himself, he shall not desecrate his word. According to whatever comes out of his mouth, he shall do. And if a woman takes a vow or establishes a prohibition in her father's home in her youth, her father heard the vow or a prohibition that she established upon herself, and her father was silent, all her vows shall stand. Any prohibition she established upon herself shall stand." That's verse 2 to verse 5. So, person makes a vow, forbids something on himself, or if a woman makes a vow, let's say she's still living in her father's home, and the father didn't hear it, then the vow is going to stick. If the father heard it, right, he could get it out of it, but if he didn't hear it on that day, then he's stuck. Then her vow is going to stand. So it's interesting. What does the Torah say here? The Torah says a man takes a vow or an oath, prohibition upon himself. Prohibition upon himself, he cannot desecrate his word. In other words, he takes something that's permissible and he forbids it. Like a person would say, they're not going to eat ice cream. They forbid ice cream upon themselves. So they say it in the language of a vow, which today is a little bit problematic. We don't have a temple today, so a person's not going to say that they're not going to eat ice cream like this animal is going to be consecrated to the temple, right? We don't really speak like that today. So if a person would say they're going to do something, they forbid on themselves, eating ice cream could have the status of a vow. That's why many people say if they're going to go do something, I'm going to go do X, and they'll say bli neder, right, without a vow. Why? Because if they say they're going to do something, they don't do it, they don't establish it, it's like they took on a vow. So, we're not going to go into the languages, but a person definitely has to be careful. What's the point, though, that we want to focus on is the fact that over here, it says you establish prohibition on yourself. So it's an obvious question. I mean, it's obvious if you know it. The question is it better to make a vow and establish the vow, or is it better never to make a vow? So the Torah here says you should not make a vow. Right? Don't establish a prohibition, so you don't desecrate your word. What are we worried about? The person's going to make a vow, and he's not going to keep what he said. The person, forbade eating ice cream on themselves. So, a few months later, they're dying for ice cream. They made this vow. They're stuck, right? So they go against the vow and they eat ice cream. So, or, you can find, 3 kosher Jews, that keep Shabbos to, try and get you out of that vow. But the point is that it's better not to make the vow at all instead of making the vow and establishing it, because we don't want to forbid things on ourselves that are permissible. So it's an interesting thing. The Christians look at the world as everything's bad, everything's evil, don't pass go, don't collect 200, it's all bad, right? So therefore, if it's all bad, then thank God they have, there's this guy hanging on a stick, right? He's hanging around because he came to this world to atone for your sins, right? You don't have to do anything. Well, it's a bad world. He came to suffer. You don't have to suffer. He suffered enough. Well, obviously Judaism doesn't believe in that. We have to take responsibility for our actions. That being said, I'm not allowed to prohibit something that's permissible. So you might say, why not? Maybe someone wants to, to raise themselves to a higher awareness, right? Maybe they want to work on their spirituality, so they'll forbid something. But this goes against the entire Torah. Why? Because God made this world, and He put man in it, and He put animals in it. He put an evil inclination in the world. He allows people to make mistakes, to do the right thing, make mistakes. So He wants you to enjoy this world. It's not like, well, we had some guy come to this world in order to atone for all your sins. No. There's reward and punishment, right? Whatever you do, there's going to be payback, if it's bad. So therefore, what we do matters. And you don't need someone else to come and die for your sins. It's all about what I do, right? My actions. I make the bed I lie in. Right? After 120 years, that's it. God's going to judge you for what you did. Not what you thought about doing, what you actually did. Right? Then there's going to be a second movie for what your potential was. Now, that being said, in this case, why is it problematic? Why is it problematic to forbid something upon yourself? Now, the Torah says clear what the reason is, because you don't desecrate your word. We're afraid He's not going to establish what He said. Now, that is a very serious thing. Because no matter what we say, we got to be careful. Because if a person says they're going to do something, they don't do it, going to have the status of a vow. And if you don't establish it, that's bad. So that is what we're worried about. But there's something much deeper here. It's not just about not establishing the vow. Here, you're forbidding something that is permitted. So God will ask. Right, I'm going to play God now. All right, no fancy mustache, no George Burns. Sorry. I'm going to play God for a second. If I were playing God, I would say, wow, after 120 years, say, did you enjoy my world? Did you get benefit from my world? And, the person may say, yes, but it was hard and this and that. So, they'll say, I worked on myself. And what did I do? I forbade things that were permitted to me. Now, God can say, wow, that's a great idea of aesthetics. Forbidding something that's permissible. That's, a certain way to look at the world. And that does, that I can see God saying, I can see where that would benefit you. You stay away from things that are permissible. Because you're going to work on yourself. You're going to work on raising yourself to a higher spiritual reality, by even forbidding things that are permissible. Comes along the Torah, though, and the Torah says no. So, me being God, I would say, but I gave you a world to enjoy. I gave you a world, all right, to enjoy the way I want you to enjoy it. I didn't tell you to forbid everything. I didn't say you can't get benefit from this, you can't get benefit from that. I put you in a world to enjoy it. Now, we look at this world today, even if people have a lot of money, doesn't mean they don't have issues and they don't have, different problems, whatever they may be. But no one gets off scot-free. So even if that's true, it's hard, to get pure benefit from this world, right? Without any strings attached, without losing something somewhere else. But God put us in this world in order to be close to Him, right? That's why a person is a mixture of body and soul. The body fights against the soul fights against the body. The body wants to debase the soul because it comes from the four corners of the earth. It comes from the physical. So a person goes after the physical, his soul gets demolished, right? We've spoken about this a number of times. If a person taps into the spiritual, he can make his body spiritual, right? His body can be transformed, in a certain way. So, but God tells you how to do it, right? He gave you a book, right? A book. He gave you a book. He manufactured it himself. And he passed it down to Moshe, passed it down to us, and he says, I know what's good for you, and I know what's bad for you. So God says what is bad for you is don't prohibit things on yourself that are permitted. Because I made a great world, if I say so myself, and I will. I made a great world. I want you to benefit from the world. The only thing is, I want you to be able to benefit in the way that I told you how to benefit. In other words, if I tell you something's forbidden, even if you don't understand it, me, God, I know better. I know what's good for you. I know what's bad for you. If I know what's good for you, fine. This is what you should do. This is what you can enjoy. If it's bad for you, don't do it, even if you don't understand it, because I'm the manufacturer himself. I'm the one who put this all together. So if I know what's bad for you, don't do it. You want to make boundaries, limits around the Torah, that's one thing, right? So we see a lot of the laws of Shabbos, a lot of the laws of Kashrus. There are boundaries, there are limits in order that you don't come to transgress a Torah prohibition, right? Most of the laws of Shabbos, rabbinical. A lot of the laws of kashrus, rabbinical. Because they want to make sure, like mixing milk and meat, there's no chance you'll ever mix milk and meat. So a person's eating meat at the table, someone else is eating milk, and you're friendly, you have to have separate placemats. So you don't eat from the other person and vice versa. So that there are a lot of boundaries put around the Torah to show that the rabbis want to show you that they don't want you to transgress something more severe. So someone say, oh, they're adding to the Torah. No. Adding to the Torah is like putting extra parchment in a person's tefillin. Putting extra tzitzis on. That's adding to the Torah. Right? But if you're making a boundary around the Torah, that's exactly what it is. Right? We've spoken about that before. But again, if I were God, what would be my question? Over here, you want to forbid something that's permissible. You want to reach a higher level of aesthetics. Okay, in and of itself, that may not be a bad thing. Right? It certainly has to be limited. But, I would say, why not get benefit out of the world the way I want you to? You don't have to forbid everything upon yourself. There's plenty of things I forbid on you. Why do you have to add on to that? That things are permissible. Right? Again, that's not adding to the Torah. That's trying to reach a higher spiritual level by even, forbidding something that's permissible. So, that's not what God wants. We're not looking at this world as bad. We're not looking at this world as evil. It's a good world. God knows what He's doing. People are corrupted. People make mistakes, and there are wars, and there's famine, and all kinds of terrible things. That all may be true. But God says, I made this world for your benefit. Right? As the Ramchal says in his introduction, the Derech Hashem mentions in Mesilas Yesharim in the path of the just, He says that I want to give you of my goodness. My own goodness I want to give you, and I'm going to create the world for that purpose. So, that's how ultimately we know that when God created the world, God's not his own sycophant. He doesn't think he's so great because he couldn't have created the world for himself. He wants us to benefit from it. God has no needs. Right? God is infinite. So an infinite being, if he's got no needs, he could not have created for his own goodness. For his own sake. He has own reasons why he wanted to create the world. Right? The main reason, as we understand, as the Ramchal says, is for our benefit. For us to derive, to enjoy God's world. That's what he wants. So if that's what he wants, you ask the $1 million question, how do I do that? Well, as we mentioned before, we got the good book. Good book tells us how to do that. God gives us instructions. So in a certain way, it's a level of chutzpah. For you to say, well, God permitted this, I have the ability to forbid it. I know better. Now, that's not what we're saying, though. When a person forbids something upon themselves, they can do it for any number of reasons. Right? Let's take the top reason. They're doing it for aesthetics because they don't want to get so much benefit from this world. Right? For whatever reason. They want to work on, purely spiritual things. So they'll get less benefit. It's known that the Vilna Gaon or Elijah Vilna, would eat, a few morsels a day, but, the bread that he would eat was covered with something, like a tissue or something, so, or whatever it was covered with, didn't give him the benefit. Right? He just swallowed it and that was it. Bland. Right? You want to get sucked into Taivis Shalom Hazeh, right? Desire. You don't want desire in this world. Desire to have whatever food. There is a disease. And yes, I will call it a disease, in this world, especially in the States. And that disease is called love of food. People are obsessed with food. That's why so many commercials, of food. Fast food, Chinese, Italian, whatever it is. Right? Because, people making the commercials understand they want to hit a person where they are. Person enjoys food, right? But it's gone, way over that. It's not just about enjoying food, right? It basically comes down to idolatry. You want to say people worship food? See how people talk about food. A person's eating lunch. They're eating, let's say, they're eating a restaurant for lunch. They're already in the middle thinking about where they're going to go for dinner. What they're going to do. Food, in the secular world, we'll get to the religious world in a second. In the secular world, food is a major component of life. Because of course, it's a major component. Everyone has to eat. You're right. Everybody has to eat. People are obsessed with calories. Obsessed with taste. Not just I have to eat in order to recharge my body. Yeah, that's also part of it. But that's not the whole. That's not the whole, ambiance going into a restaurant, and enjoying the atmosphere and all that. There's a whole thing to it. Again, I'm not saying, going out to a restaurant, is forbidden, right? But a person, has to know, that there have to be limitations. There definitely have to be limitations. So in the secular world, food is an extremely important thing. Doesn't matter what it looks like, right? It's extremely important. Billboards, advertisements, drinks, food, it is today is a form of idolatry because people just consume by it. So you say, well, in the religious world, you also eat food. Well, that's true, right? And, a lot of the holidays, right? Sukkot, Passover festivals, obligation to have festive meals. Right, so on Passover, the first 2 days, the last 2 days, you have at least 2 festive meals. One at night, one during the day. Right, Shabbos, you have a nice meal. You have 3 meals. Right, that revolves around food. That's true. But when a person has a festive meal, and they have nice food, I mean, it can also be idolatry. Person's not careful. But you have nice food not just because for the sake of the food itself, because you're embellishing the festival. You're making the festival nicer by having nicer food, by having meat, right? Drinking wine. Again, you're not going overboard. But, there is an important idea of making it a extremely nice meal. Not for the sake of the food itself. You're not having this nice meal so you can just stuff your face. That's not the point. The point to have a nice meal is it's part of the holiday itself. Not that the holiday's, idolatrous, right? But if a person eats a meal and they sing songs like on Shabbos or on the festival, on festivals, and they're speaking words of Torah, and let's say on Sukkot, person sings, they eat in their sukkah, they look up, they're, the thin roof, all the palm fronds, the mats that are on top, you're looking out to the sky. So if you're in the States or, other places where it can be cold, so you're subjected to the elements. If you're in Israel, right, it can be pretty hot, depending on when it is. Sometimes it can be in early September or mid-September. So, but the point is, you're eating your meal outside. You have white sheets covering your sukkah in remembrance of the Ananei Kavod, of the clouds of glory. When the Jewish people came out, clouds of glory took care of all their needs. Right? They didn't have to worry about, their sandals getting ripped apart, or, their clothes getting dirty, or, or sweat, or any of that. So when you're sitting in the sukkah and you're eating your meal, the meal itself is not just, look how much food I can eat. Look how many meatballs I can wolf down sitting in my sukkah. That's not the point. The point is, is what is the sukkah? What does it represent? So you have what the holiday is, what it represents, and the food are part of it. The meals, okay, they're a good part of it. But again, the question is, am I praising God, by stuffing my face? I mean, you can do both. But what, the purpose of food is to sustain you. So a person can learn more Torah, be more of a servant of God. At the same time, when, a person speaks about the holiday and about the deeper meanings of the holiday, and they sing songs about the holiday, okay, there's food there also. So we have to make the ikar, not the tuffle ikar. Right? The essence of what the holiday is, that's the most important thing. We don't make something that's subordinate to that, the essence of what it is. So if you want to tell me, the most important thing about Sukkot is the food that we eat and you stuff your face. No. The most important part about Sukkot is sitting in the sukkah. Having a festive meal is also part of it. But when you sanctify the wine, you also make a blessing afterwards of sitting in the sukkah. It's not just about it gives me permission to eat, then I'm going to make a blessing over bread. And I'm going to have this nice meal. The essence of it is, you're going to have a nice meal, but that's not the essence. The essence is you're sitting in the sukkah. Even if you had, bread and a little bit of fish, maybe a drop of chicken, whatever a person can afford. Right? It doesn't have to be this whole elaborate meal. You have what a person can afford, to put on, to put on the plate, put on the table, but that the essence is having the meal, but you have to have words of Torah. You should sing, even if you don't necessarily like to. Singing is also good, right? Singing praises to God. You're, like on Shabbos, saying the importance of keeping Shabbos. A lot of the songs have to do with that that Shabbos, the observance of Shabbos guards a person, etc. So we can't, even in the Orthodox world, right? Even in the Orthodox world, people can get lost, and people can, have, 3-4 course meals, and be extravagant when, it's beyond their budget. Person needs to do what they need, what they can afford to do. Right? So, you can have 2 courses and make it very nice. But it's not about, having 3 types of meat. It's not about having this, cholent and, 4 types of fish and, different things. So, I want to make clear, absolutely clear, it's not just about, the quantity of food. You say, oh, it's about the quality. It's not a question of how good the food tastes. By the Shabbos meals, food is important. Delicacies are important. What you enjoy. What is, what makes the Shabbos atmosphere more better. People, let's say at the end of the meal, they like having chocolate covered nuts or, or a par of ice cream or whatever. That's their enjoyment. Does it mean, I have to eat half the thing? Half the thing of ice cream? No. But see, you get enjoyment, that helps you enjoy Shabbos. So someone will say, but when I eat a meal, when I eat this meal and I'm stuffed, it's also my enjoyment. Yeah, the Torah also says that even though it's permissible to eat food, doesn't mean you can be a glutton. Doesn't mean you can be a pig. Right? Doesn't mean you have to stuff your face so you can't move. Right? Musar, books of ethics speak about, right, as Rabbi Yisrael Salant, the founder of the ethics movement, of the Musar movement, said when a person eats, should leave something on the plate. Not that it's going to get wasted. You say, oh, look at all this wasted food. No, leave a little bit on the plate just to remember. I don't have to, stuff everything in. Just leave a little bit. You're going to say, wow, a person has to be on such a high spiritual level. He says, no. It means don't give in to all your base desires. This base desire is a killer. Because people get obsessed. People totally get obsessed with food. And, it's a crazy thing. They'll be at someone's table and they have, 3 types of meat, 4 types of fish, this, that. They'll think, oh, I should be able to do that also. It'll be my enjoyment, but, if they can't afford it, you can't put yourself in hock in order to do it. So, again, it has to be according to, whatever a person can afford. But, again, at the Shabbos table, it's not just what you eat. It's what you speak about. It's what the Torah topics are. It's what you sing, even if you don't necessarily like to sing. Right? It's all about that. The food, okay. You want to enjoy the food as well. You want to have nicer food on Shabbos. There's nothing wrong with that. But if a person's obsessed and they take it too far, yeah, that is the issue. So, we don't want to live in this world, and everything's forbidden. We have no enjoyment, etc. God put us in this world in order to draw close to Him according to the way He wants. So therefore, there are going to be restrictions on what I'm allowed to eat, right? There will be restrictions on what I'm allowed to speak. There'll be all kinds of different things that a person may have to do. But the world itself, the Jewish outlook is, the world itself is not bad. The world itself is not evil. People make it evil. People are corrupted. Very true. So, regardless of where we're holding and what we're doing, God wants us to enjoy. He wants us to benefit. And through this benefit, by keeping the Torah, by keeping mitzvahs, that's going to draw ourselves closer. It's going to draw ourselves closer to Him. And that is the point of why He created the world, in the first place. So, if something's permitted, and then someone comes along and forbids it, right, and he said whatever exact language he needed to say to do that, then it becomes forbidden to them. Unless they get 3 kosher Jews to uproot it. Now, that's not what God wants, though. He'll allow it to happen, and if you go against what you said, it's going to be a desecration, right? You're going to desecrate your word, which is bad. That's why He doesn't want you to make it in the first place. But you're going against what He really wants. Because in essence, I could forbid all kinds of things upon myself. Right? A person can do that. God says, what? My world's not good enough? the fact that I permitted this, that, and the other thing, gives you the right to forbid it. Doesn't give you the right to forbid it. Now, a person can have altruistic motives, and they could reach very high spiritual levels. So for those few people, it's one thing. Want to be like the Vilna Gaon and eat 2 morsels a day, not even get benefit from it and swallow it through a tissue or whatever, so you don't even taste it. So God forbid you should have any desires for, other types of food or whatever. I don't know too many people like that, or anybody, certainly in this generation. Are there people that, don't want to, be distracted by the desire for food? Yeah. There are people like that. I'm just saying that, by Americans in general, it's a disease. It's an absolute disease, because people just get way carried away. And that is just a total negative of what God wants. So we have to work. I'm not going to say, a person shouldn't eat ice cream. A person shouldn't eat chocolate if they enjoy it. So I'd say don't overdo it, right? But you want to enjoy it. You do enjoy it, okay? Bon appetit. Eat as much chocolate as you want. Just don't go overboard. We just, I think today we just go crazy. If a person goes into a in a supermarket, or a store, like a local, like a local market, like here in Israel, like a makolet, for instance, and you see like, shelves and shelves of, potato chips and, cookies and candy and, and all that. So, having a sweet, there's nothing wrong with it. But again, the more a person enjoys it, you get used to certain things. Again, I'm not saying you have to forbid it. You have to know how to use it. And there are chemicals in certain foods that make it more addicting. Plastic pickles, can't just eat one. Potato chips, can't just eat one. They put things in there in order for you to desire it more. So, this whole thing, may sound like a strange idea. Because if you tell most people, they'll think you're crazy. They're like, leave me alone. I want to eat what I want to eat. I want to enjoy. And if I eat too much of it, okay, it's my problem. But, why should I have limits? That right? This is really the issue. Why should I have any limits? If I want to eat, I'll eat. If I don't want to eat, I won't eat. So here the Torah says, even if you want to make more limits, don't do it. If you do it, okay, it will be established, and, if you want to get out of it, so you'll have to, get 3 kosher Jews in order to get out of it. But you don't want to get stuck. You don't want to go forbidding, all kinds of things, right? This is what the Torah is against. The Torah wants you to enjoy things in moderation. Right? The Rambam says, you take the middle path. You don't go to one extreme or the other. You take the middle path. That's moderation. So you want to eat? Okay, but eat in moderation. How many people are, statistics of people being, overweight and obese, through the roof? You think, well, people are addicted to this stuff, people have no willpower. Yeah, but there's a lot of enticement also, that they're given. So all things have to be done, in moderation. A person shouldn't go to one extreme or the other. That's definitely true. But you have to know how to do that also. Because, if you do something, you go too far one way or the other way, the Rambam says that's no good. Right? It's definitely no good. So there may be times where it may be a good thing to prohibit themselves from something. But the Torah says it's certainly better not to do that, and it's better to, if you want to forbid something upon yourself, and you want to make a vow, figure out a different way. If a person doesn't, they don't want to use the example, you don't want to eat ice cream. So you make a vow to strengthen that. I got a better idea. Just figure out a way not to eat ice cream. Making a vow just makes it more complicated. Right? It says, no, it gives me incentive. Then I can't go against it. So then I'll never eat it. Torah doesn't want that. Torah wants you to figure out a different way to work on the desire for ice cream without forbidding it on yourself. That's what the Torah wants. Not you making a vow. So you might say, well, that's going to help me. That is going to be a tremendously strong deterrent against eating ice cream. Well, that's very good. The only problem is, Torah says don't do it. Because you may not be able to uphold it. You say, but I'll just get 3 kosher Jews. And I'll get rid of it. They'll give me an opening. Or I'll find an opening. And they'll permit it. But again, do not bite off more than you can chew. No pun intended. Because if a person does something, they say something, and they don't uphold what they say. This is a terrible thing. This is what the prohibition is. This is what the Torah is afraid of. Then you're going to break what you said. So in order for that not to happen, what does the Torah say? Don't do it. If you do it, fine, it's established. But that is the issue. So then from that we drew in that a person has to do things in moderation. If a person wants to show how pious they are, the Ramchal says in Path of the Just, the Ramchal says if you want to run around, when it's 30 below, in a tank top and shorts, my language, and show how aesthetic you are, when it's freezing out, the Ramchal says that's not aesthetics, that's stupidity. Right? You don't go running around in the snow trying to show how righteous you are. You want to show how righteous you are? Yeah, do it in other ways, not that way. Do what you need to do. Guard your eyes. Guard your ears. Don't speak lashon hara. Don't speak badly against others. Learn. Learn as much as you can. Listen to classes. Do things. Don't stick out. Like a sore thumb. You're going to do something like so crazy that, look how great I am. Look what I'm doing. I'm not eating for 2 days. That's not what the Torah wants. The Torah does not want you separating from things that are permissible. The Torah wants you to use this world for good things, not to abuse them, but to know how to use them. So how do I know how to use them? Because we have guidelines. Right? We have a book. There are guidelines. Not to go too far in different things. Some things are very stringent. For sure. But as I'm always fond of saying, and this is where people make mistakes, and that is you can't do what you want when you want. That's why every person needs a mentor, needs a rabbi to guide them. Because when a person, let's say, is coming out of Christianity, and they have to beat this mentality out of their mind that everything's bad, then they go to the other extreme. Okay, this is permissible, that's permissible, but you can't abuse things either, even if it is permissible. So says the Ramban at the beginning of Parshas Kadosh, chapter 19, in the book of Leviticus. Torah says, Kadoshim to you should be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. What does that mean? It means that the Ramban says you forbid things that are permissible. So for it, you don't forbid, you go beyond what is permissible. In other words, Torah says you're allowed to eat. Does that mean I have to be, 100 pounds overweight and I have to be a glutton? Absolutely not. Torah says you're allowed to drink. Does that mean I should be an alcoholic? Absolutely not. You abuse what is permitted. So this is just the opposite. Right here you're prohibiting what's permitted. But if you go to the opposite extreme, where, a person's come from this idea of doom and gloom and everything's bad and whatever, Now you're saying, oh, this is permissible, that's permissible. I'm allowed to derive benefits, so let me drink a lot. Not allowed to. Right? It's going to make you into an alcoholic, potentially. Not to mention, drink enough beer, put, excess weight on. A different issue. If a person drinks hard liquor, can you get addicted to it? Yeah. That's what they call an alcoholic. But drinking liquor is permissible. True. 100% permissible. Says the Ramban. I'm not allowed to abuse it. So I have to be careful. When I'm in this world, I for sure have to be careful. So there have to be limitations. There have to be boundaries. Boundaries, again, how I eat, what I eat, how I speak, all these different things. Because if they're not, they just go haywire. So, when we look at what's permitted, especially in food, you go to a wedding, or you go to let's say you go to a kiddush, make it easier. Person goes to a kiddush on Shabbos, and they have a screaming smorgasbord. You know what a screaming smorgasbord is? It means that there's so much food on the table screams. You're going to say, well, isn't the point of a kiddush that, should have a whole bunch of food people should enjoy, especially if you had a baby, they wish mazel tov and this. Yeah. But you go overboard also. Eating is permissible. Knowing how to eat, yeah, that's work. And there are times, person it's hot out, person wants to get an ice cream, woofs it down, right? He enjoys it, it's fine. Don't woof four of them down. Don't eat one necessarily every day. Right? It depends what it is. But we can get carried away. That is the point. We can get carried away by food, which is a terrible thing. So people might say, now you're saying food is bad. Now you're saying this is bad. What I'm saying is don't abuse it. Don't make it into an idol. Americans make it into an idol. It's just what they do. And it's seeped into the religious world also. A person has to have limitations. Limitations, though, do not mean I have to prohibit it. This person says, well, so what do I do? Answer, you have to make, certain limitations. Certain boundaries. The Rambam says you have to guard the body. Take care of it. A person wants to have cake here and there. Chocolate, ice cream, whatever. You still have to be careful. You have to guard your body. I'm not saying you have to make it forbidden. But you have to do it in moderation. Right? That really is the point. Even if you have a fancy meal because it's it's a Sheva Brachos, it's a 7-day, festival after, festive meals after a person gets married, right, for the first time. So then you're going to have fancy meals. It's going to be a glutton for this fancy meal. No, it's a special thing. It's a special occasion. Right, the festivals come up every year. Shabbos comes up every week. You're going to have nicer meals, 100%. They should be nicer meals. But being nicer meals doesn't mean I'm worshiping food. It depends how you do it. So the Torah is pretty smart. The Torah understands the psyche of man because of the one who created us. He understands that psyche. He doesn't want you to go too far on either end. He wants you to do what's right and do it in a proper way. Because if you go outside those boundaries, then what happens is it's wasted. You're taking something that's permissible and you go way beyond what you should have. That's not what God wants. He doesn't want you to go to one extreme and things are permitted and to, eat like a glutton. He doesn't want you to go to the other extreme and not, and eat very little because you prohibited all these things upon yourself. He doesn't want that. So a person has to find their path, exactly where they fit in. But it has to be within moderation. Because if not, then you abuse either side. And abusing either side, according to the manufacturer himself, is bad. And we can see from practical experience, see what goes on, quote unquote, in the real world. So we know what goes on. We know how obsessed people can be. You can say, well, it's the way of the world. That's what people do. Yeah, but who says we have to do it? We have to say our culture has to be part of it. We have to get sucked in. Nobody. The world around us, when you look at Judaism as a whole, it's very negative against Judaism because it's all about desire. Right? It's what we inherited from the Greeks. All about worship of the body. Worship of other things. It's bad. So we have to fight those forces. But even those things are permissible, okay, within reason. Not that itself, is idolatry, which it certainly can be. So we have to be ever so vigilant and so careful to make sure that this idea doesn't infiltrate us. We control what we eat, not eating controls us. So I want to remind people I have a course that I recently made. It's called Discover Your Biblical Path. It is 6 modules. Anyone coming out of Christianity or any idolatry, it gives the person the ability to either make a choice to want to convert or to be a Noahide. It's not my choice to convince, but someone can have the option. Either option, you find out what it means to be a Jew, what it means to be a Noahide, go through oral tradition, some of the holidays, what it means to find a rabbi in a community, and the pitfalls in both. And there were 7 interviews where I interviewed people in the process of conversion that finished and still in the process, and people who were Noahides. I also have an intro to Kabbalah class every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. We're talking about prayer and everyday rituals that we do. That's 9 o'clock every Tuesday night. Every other Wednesday night, won't be this week, it'll be next week. Controversial issues on Tanakh Talk. That's TanakhTalk.com, TENAKTALK.com, or Tanakh Talk on YouTube. Controversial issues. I've done a number of them. Homosexuality, reincarnation, oral tradition. Take a look there. I also give conversion classes and Noahide classes. You can take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or Beyond Noahides, or my blog at orthodoxconversion.com. I also have 2 question and answer sessions, one on Tuesday, 10 a.m. New York time, and Thursday, 2 p.m. New York time. People can come, ask their questions. I put them up online afterwards. And anyone who wants to contact me, feel free. You can contact me at rabbichaimcoffman at gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. Everyone have a great Shabbos.